In theory, we're all ready. Hello and welcome to The Great Indoors.
The podcast which reveals everything you ever needed to know about interiors and explains how to make it all really work for you in your home.
I'm Kate Watson-Smythe.
And I'm Sophie Robinson, and today, for the 5th episode of our 6-part Back to Basics series, it's time to look at those finishing touches.
That's right. We've taken you through the layout and the lighting. We've looked at colour palettes and budget planning. By this stage, you know what you want your room to look like and pretty much how to get there. But you can't relax just yet.
You cannot, because this is the essential part where you bring it all together. It's all those lovely details that, well, really bring a room to life. It's the lamps, the art, the rugs, the cushions. I could go on.
Of course you could, but we'll stop you there. It's where, to bring the discipline back to this podcast, it's where you look at your developing red thread and see what needs emphasising and what needs pulling back. And not to mention adding those details that make it your home as opposed to a space you've decorated.
Now, that's all very exciting. It possibly is my favourite topic because it's all the knick-knacks, all the bits and bobs, all the pretty things, all the stuff we love to collect. And I like to think of it as feathering our nest in all the pretty things. But before we get into that, Kate, I have rather enjoyed fronting the top of the show with a bit of a feisty 15. And at this point, I'm going to be honest, the only thing I'm feeling really feisty about is the weather. Might be too hot for a row. Might actually need to go and lie down in a cold room.
Well, you say that. I find in London the hotter it is, the fightier people are. But we can try and play nicely for once if you like. I mean, I'm very British. It's been unbearable. But obviously in a couple of days it's going to rain and I'll be moaning about that. I actually never moan when it rains.
You never moan when it rains?
No.
Actually. Well, I like a bit of summer rain, I have to say. And who knows, when this podcast comes out, it may well be raining. But we're recording at the beginning of the month. There's been an incredible heat wave for the last couple of days. I mean, as most people will probably know because I'll have spammed it all on my Instagram by now, I had a massive birthday celebration at the end of June. And then, which I was delighted it didn't rain for, because that would have been a disaster. That's when you don't want rain, when you're hosting a garden party. And I looked at the price of marquees a few months earlier and was like, okay, it's just not going to rain. It's just not going to rain.
And that right there is how you manifest.
Absolutely. And manifest I did. And it was perfect. It was a really lovely, balmy evening. It couldn't have been more perfect. And not only that, it was dry all the way up to the party. So all our preparations, and as you can imagine, I had a joint 50th celebration with my best friend Sophie, who's an artist. And we get an interior designer and an artist together. We spent weeks hanging glittery, fringing, festoon lighting. There were fairy lights twinkling. There were lanterns bobbing from the trees. There were candles flickering. There were huge vases of flowers. I mean, it was epic. But what I hadn't quite factored was that when it was all over, I was going to have to take it all down. And cue heat wave.
I did wonder when we were getting to the point of this. I specifically said to you, by the time this episode goes out, your party will be a long distant memory, speaking as someone who didn't come. But obviously she shoehorned it in there. This was my party. You didn't come. It was amazing. And now we get back to the point, which was, yes, the heat wave.
Well, maybe that's my feisty 15. In fact, you didn't come to my party. And I just want another opportunity to rub it in.
Yeah.
No, it was so hot. And then as a consequence, my work has completely backlogged. And I was like, I've got to sit at my desk and get through these emails. I've got clear tasks that I need to do. And I just couldn't do it, Kate. It was so boiling. I dug the fan out, like I do have a fan, because we had another kind of heat wavy summer, didn't we, a few years ago?
Yeah.
I dug the fan out. Obviously, I've lost the remote control that operates it.
Oh, you poor dear lamb. Have you had to get up and walk across the room?
I tell you what, that is a feisty 15 in itself. Remote controls, like, why do we need them for things like fans? I am capable of going up to a fan and pressing some buttons. It's not a problem. But no, I've got to have a remote that I'm going to lose at some point in the future. And now I can't work the blinking.
Oh, you mean it doesn't work without a remote? Oh, that is annoying.
Well, it's got buttons, but they don't seem to do what I want them to do. But what I've worked out is the only button that can sort of bring it to life is the timer button. So now I have to put on a timer to come on in an hour.
Well, I mean, I think that's a minor
and wait
inconvenience.
for an hour for the fan to come on.
Yesterday, I had a lunch meeting, which was lovely. Went to my lunch meeting, coming back on the tube. Tube pulls to a halt at my stop. Looked at the stop, just forgot to get up and get off. Well, literally, my brain melted. And then I went to the next stop, which was really, really a long stop. And then I was like, oh, God, cue lots of swearing. Won't do that for the Apple monitors, but, you know, and had to get up and walk up the stairs and round and back down and go to the other platform. We go back one stop. I was livid.
Oh, my God. Well, that's like, yeah, you need a remote control just to operate yourself to get on the train on time.
Yes, I need to put myself on a timer.
I mean, but just a moment being on a tube in a heat wave.
Yeah,
isn't that just like the worst thing ever?
So I read the other day that I can't remember who it said that, but you have to put an ice cube under your armpit because that stimulates the vagus nerve or something and stops you feeling stressed. I mean, it make you feel quite damp on a tube. I'd feel quite stressed by that. But apparently, ice cubes under your armpits. That's the solution. Who knew?
That is quite a niche tip, though, because first of all,
you've got to have an ice cube. I know. I know.
Cube.
Maybe it's not for on the tube, but that's interesting, that cold thing, because I've also been reading that these ice baths are not good
I
for
love
women.
an ice bath.
I've not read the whole thing, but I just, you know, if I ever needed an excuse not to have to do an ice bath, I think they're not good for you.
No, I saw that. It was on this morning. I saw a this morning.
Are you accusing
clip.
me of watching daytime TV?
Well, I was just about to justify this point by saying I saw a clip on Instagram, so I didn't watch daytime TV. I saw it on their Instagram feed, and they were interviewing some expert who was saying that the worst thing you can do when you're really, really hot is have a cold shower or a cold bath, which is all I crave, because they said what that does is it shocks the system to pump all the blood to the surface to warm you up.
And heat you up.
And then you overheat. So the best thing to do is to have a lukewarm bath.
Tepid bath, tepid shower. And the other thing, which it's taken me a while to wrap my head around this, but now I've done it, is obviously you sleep with the windows open at night. And when you get up in the morning, you must shut the windows and keep the curtains closed, because that traps the cooler air into the room. Now, I've kept the curtains closed before, but I've had the windows open because I thought there might be a bit of breeze. And actually, that's wrong. It's close the windows as soon as you get up, and that will keep the cool air that has accumulated overnight in the room cool for as long as possible. And then you don't open the windows again till you go to bed. So we've been doing that. I mean, it's probably made a degree of difference. It's not massively noticeable, but it's been exceptionally hot.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Keeping the curtains closed in the day is a really good one, and because that's basically taking a tip from our hot climate friends. I mean, they all do that, don't they? They all have shutters on their houses, don't they? I remember my dad's house in France used to get unbelievably hot, and if you went out and forgot to shut the shutters before you went out, no one was sleeping that night. It was all over. Like, you basically jeopardised the whole evening. That house had just heated up like a baker's oven all day long and was never going to cool down again in a hurry. So it's little things like that can really help. Arthur and I, actually, he woke up in the middle of the night just going, oh, Mummy, I'm just so hot. And we did the old wet flannel behind the neck and on the forehead trick. But
did it work?
No, I'm going to get an ice cube next time. I'm going to say, here you go, Pop It. Stick one of these under your
ice
armpit
cube,
and wake up in a nice soggy bed. Let's do
and
that
the other
instead.
thing is obviously running your wrists under the cold tap, because your blood is very close to the surface there. So you can put that under a cold tap, actually. That will cool you down. But maybe if you do your whole body in the shower, that doesn't work.
Oh, God, it's a mystery. It's a mystery that needs picking.
Bring on the rain.
Bring on. Now that I've had my party, you can rain all you like.
There we go.
Having said that, I am going to a festival this weekend. We have a really lovely festival near where I live down here in East Sussex called Love Supreme. It's a really nice jazz festival. And apparently it's going to rain or moderate showers this weekend. But I very smugly haven't bought a camping ticket this weekend. I bought a day pass, and I'm going to get a taxi driver to pick me up and bring me back to my nice dry house every evening, because it's literally 15 minutes down the road, so I can. I've decided that's quite my new approach to festivaling now. To just go to festivals within a 15-minute drive from my house.
And also then, you know, you wouldn't even have to use the festival loos. You could get the cab to just whip you home for a quick wee and go back again. No one would even notice you'd gone. It's the luge that finished me off at festivals. Anyhow, TMI.
Have you actually ever been to a festival?
I went to Latitude. I've been to Glastonbury.
Oh, what? When did you go to Glastonbury?
Oh, I mean, it was so far ago. It was when the world was in black and white. It was so long ago. It was before there was even the internet. Climbed through a hole in the hedge. Went for the day. Didn't have a wee. We did this. We talked about this, I'm sure, when we talked about my horror of camping.
Of camping, of
Yes,
course.
but there we go.
I forgot that you went to Glastonbury. I think it's so hot, I've forgotten what day of the
There
week
you
it
go.
is,
We
quite
should
frankly.
get on with this
And
episode.
actually, the thought of you at Glastonbury holding a wee in all day is quite a delightful thought. So I'm glad that I got served that a second time if we have already
There you
talked
go.
about it.
Let's crack on with the episode.
Okay, let's get into it. So, styling and finishing touches. I think it's a really nice place to start with this is this red thread theory that I kind of want to say it's yours.
Yeah,
because
I
you're
don't
the
think it
first
is. I
person-
wish it was. But yes, it's
But why don't you tell our listeners about it? Because I think it's genius.
Well, so the idea is basically it doesn't have to be a red thread, but it is a theme that
Yeah, can I have a
winds-
pink thread?
You can have a pink one. I've got a pink one, actually. It is a consistent thread. You can have more than one that winds throughout your house from room to room and brings all the rooms together in probably quite a subtle way. So obviously it can be a colour. So I have probably something pink in every room. So my sitting room is painted in 2 different shades of sort of powdery, plastery pink. I have in my bedroom pink woodwork. I have in my bathroom actually a pink towel. So there's different elements of pink throughout the room so that the rooms are all brought together. It can also be material. You might have a velvet sofa and a velvet headboard and a velvet cushion in your spare room. So it's materials. You might have a marble worktop in your kitchen and a marble clock or a marble candlestick in your sitting room. So the idea is that you are bringing all the different rooms and spaces in your home together with a line of, I'm going to say invisible threads, but there is a conversation happening throughout your house where it all joins together. And what you can find if you've done your whole house and it's not feeling quite right is that maybe you just haven't fully explored that red thread. And I know you've talked about one of yours being yellow. You don't have yellow walls, but you've got a yellow door. You might have a painting that's got lots of yellows in it. You might have a yellow vase in a different space. So it's just deciding what your, to use another word, style signifiers are, and making sure that you've got them throughout your house. So for these final finishing touches, it may be just making sure that you've got enough of them or what they are, and are they spreading throughout your house?
So it's about repetition, isn't it?
It is.
Repeating similar materials, colours, style motifs, pattern motifs.
And
to bring a
textures.
sense of cohesion and flow throughout
Yes,
the whole house.
but
This is
it's-
how you bring it all together.
But it's absolutely not about painting every room the same colour. As I say, the key to it is you will have different amounts and different materials. So if it's a colour, then, you might have a little here and a lot there and a velvet bit there and a metal bit there. So it's about mixing up all the materials, but so that there's always that element in each space.
No, I love the idea of that because I think, we're not really getting into paint colour in sofas, and we've done that. That was earlier in the process of Back to Basics. But when it comes to finishing touches, it's a good way to mop up.
Yeah.
If rooms don't feel like they're really working or the house is feeling a bit disjointed, you can go back to your red thread, your colour palette, your materials palette, your pattern palette, and use these to pick artwork, vases, lampshades, cushions, rugs. They're all the loose bits. They're the non-fixtures, aren't they?
And it's filling in the gaps in a bit because what you happen. So when we did this house in Italy, we had a huge amount of work to do. And so it was very much in the first instance. I mean, it went way beyond first fix, but if you like, it was about doing the outlines. So we did the rewiring, we did the plumbing, we decorated, we decorated the bathrooms, we decorated the bedrooms, we did all the painting. And we had, I remember we got the keys back. The builders moved out just before Christmas and we had 8 people coming for New Year. So at that point, it was about making sure that every bedroom had a bed, a rug, a bedside table, and a bedside lamp and a mirror. And that was kind of, the basics. That was, if you like, the outlines. So it was guest ready, and the house felt, to all intents and purposes, finished. I mean, when is a house ever finished? That's a different conversation. But, it was ready, it was functional, it looked pretty. And then what comes in afterwards with these finishing touches, which can go on for as long as you want, it's about adding a picture there or a cushion there, or maybe changing that rug to a better one and a different lamp. This is the bit, if you like, where you've done the outlines, the builders have gone, you can move back in and it all works beautifully, but you're now colouring in, if you like, by adding your details.
I love that analogy. I think that's a really nice idea. You're colouring in between the lines, or indeed
outside the
colouring
lines.
in.
Yeah.
I mean, what's really nice about finishing touches is we're now opening up the floor to not just our renovators, but people who may have been in their home for many years and are sitting there going, oh, it's all just a bit bare and I could do with a refresh. This is where you can, yes, it might be a new paint on the wall. It might be, time to invest in a new sofa, but it might just be time to switch everything about. And I think it's a really good idea to sometimes look at all the elements that you've collected, the lamps, the pictures, the coffee table books, the vases, the dishes, the trays, the rugs, all these bits and bobs, and think, are they in the right place? Are they in the right room? I mean, there's a great little phrase, we talked about it a lot in lockdown when one couldn't go shopping, literally, shop your home.
Yeah, absolutely.
The idea that you can move candlesticks around. You can move. I quite like shifting my art about, actually. Because it can give a whole... Oh, I know. Is that...
that doesn't happen in our house. So...
That was a sharp intake of break.
Well, because
why do you not move art about?
I've read this about moving the artwork around, and I, to be honest, not averse to it. I suggested this to the mad husband. I said, we could do a bit of a room refresh, move the pictures around. And that was I think that was a marital veto, because the argument came back that, I've bought this picture, we've bought this picture, we've decided where we wanted it for, it's filling that gap, we've spent a lot of time deciding exactly where it's going to go, that's where it lives, can't move. You can't just be moving your pictures around willy-nilly, was the answer that came back. I'm not sure I entirely agree, but in this house, they will not be moved, willy-nilly or in any other direction.
That was my mum. My mum's just popped in. I think we have to... I'm recording the podcast, Mum. Do you want to say hello to Kate?
Hello, Kate.
Hello, Claire. How are
Lovely
you?
to see you.
I can't see you, but I know you're there.
I'll go speak to you later.
Speak to you in a bit.
Okay.
Yes. So, art is a no in your house.
Well, not for moving it, yes.
But it's a yes for me. I mean, it's not the easiest thing to move because it usually has nails and blah, 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 blah. But if I'm using similar sized pieces around, I do it in my hallway quite a lot, actually, and then it just gives you a completely different perspective and point of view. I also sometimes can help. I know when I'm sort of working with other people, sometimes grouping things together can help create impact. So it might be that you've got lots of different pictures and paintings, but maybe if they're not big enough or the right scale for the room, bringing lots of little pictures together and creating more of a gallery wall moment can be really helpful. So even just the way you arrange the pieces you've got by bringing them together, it might even be like, rather than having all your little vases and ornaments dotted around the room, bringing them all together on one sideboard or
I think that's a really key
shelves.
point. Actually, 2 points there. One is I really like that idea, which we've seen a few times. I think I first saw in Bianca Hall's sitting room, where she had a set of pictures that were quite small, and I think she felt they didn't hold the wall enough, so she painted a square on the wall in a particular colour that went with the rest of the room, and then put the smaller pictures into it, and that then creates the impression actually of one single bigger piece. And she was very clever because it was a matching set and she hung them rigidly in a grid. But I mean, that can be a nightmare for getting them all level. So you can then put them slightly randomly within your grid, your coloured square, because that holds it together. Also, brilliant way to get rid of tester pots, which are good for nothing, but you always have a bit left over. And also quite an easy way to change up your decor. So you could, for example, do a yellow square on your pink wall. I'm now thinking of what was your sitting room. Obviously, it's not anymore. But, you could do a yellow square on a pink wall and hang the pictures on it. And then if you got bored with that, you could change it to your other signature colour, which is cobalt blue, later on. And you feel like you've changed things and redecorated. But actually, it's a very minor way of switching things up a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wasn't planning on talking about paint because I always consider that as being earlier in the design process, but actually adding little accents like that in an alcove, behind some shelves, a block of colour that then art hangs on, you know, a little trim or just a random door in a different colour. I mean, that all falls under the umbrella of finishing touches. So it's almost when you think you finished decorating, what
Yeah.
you're saying is we can still, even just, I loved it when we did a tour of Matthew Williamson's home a few years ago. And he's obviously hugely creative and experimental with colour, has a great reputation for being an incredible master of colour. And he had this like acid yellow window. I think it was in a bathroom. And I was just like, God, I love that. And he was like, yeah, one day I just fancied it. I had some bright yellow paint. And I thought,
Yeah.
I know, I'll paint that window yellow. And I love that. I love that concept that when the decorators have left or when you've taken off your overalls and you think you've done, you can still look at your home in a new and fresh way and go, do you know what? I fancy painting that today.
Yes, and it can, as you say, as long as it's a self-contained thing. So it doesn't have to be a whole wall. It can be a door. It can be a skirting board. We've painted the inside of in the sitting room, which is a knock through. We've painted the inside of, I want to call it an arch, but it isn't an arch, it's square. But, you know, painted that in a contrasting colour. And it's a bit like making a portal from one end of the room to the other. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, from that point of view, you don't ever have to stop with the paint because that can suddenly make it fresh. You know, it's a bit, I always liken it to, you know, sometimes you buy a new top and it's quite a simple top. It can be a black T-shirt or a grey sweatshirt or something, obviously not in your case.
It's never going to be either of those things in my case.
But
Kate,
you
clearly.
buy one simple item and you suddenly feel like you've got 6 new outfits because it suddenly goes with a pair of trousers you'd forgotten about, or it goes with a new pair of shoes, or it suddenly feels like it rejuvenates your whole wardrobe, and yet it's one simple addition. And I think having a pot of paint on hand can do that. You know, just painting that door suddenly makes it all feel new and exciting, or inside that arch or that little extra twiddly bit. So I'm going to say never give up with the paint.
I think what this all feeds into, though, is this concept of staying playful.
Yeah.
And I think the most interesting interiors are never really static. And, you know, as we grow and change and move and have different moods and feelings and perspectives, I love the idea that our home and our interior decor can be a slightly organic living being.
Well, that feels quite scary put like that, but I'm going to take the idea. I'm going to take the idea and just maybe, you know, reword that a bit. But yes, I know exactly what you mean. And also that is an easy way to change spaces. You know, I interviewed Lucinda Chambers, who used to be the creative fashion director of Vogue, and she's got the room, her spare room, which is, I mean, she's so good with colour. So it's a bit lilac and a bit sludgy brown, and there's a little bit of green in there. You know, they're colours that you might think, oh, that's quite, but because they're all sort of slightly muddy, they blend in really well. And she said to me, you know, oh, and good tip actually, she matched the bronzy brown colour on her ceiling to a candle she loved. So, you know, never rule out inspiration from anywhere. She just took that to the local paint shop and said, I must have this colour. And she said that it was all sliding slightly into what she called ghastly good taste. So she looked around, she wanted a bright orange wooden chair. And she said she couldn't find the one she wanted anywhere, and she was looking online and getting increasingly desperate and increasingly expensive. And then she went to stay with some friends for the weekend and was telling them about it. And they went, oh, we've got this hideous orange chair in the loft that nobody wants. You can have that if you want. And she went upstairs and looked at it and it was perfect. So she's got these kind of subtle, muddy, lilac-y, browny colours and then a bright orange chair. And that's a brilliant idea of just making that room feel more alive, but also, you know, you could put that orange chair in a different room if she decides that she wants to make that chair bright blue to disrupt it in a different way. She could repaint it. So it's all, as you say, it's changing it, it's keeping it alive.
Well, this idea of a disruptor colour is quite interesting, isn't it? And I think this very much comes into this chapter of finishing touches. So, and I love Lucinda's terminology there of like trying to stop it all getting like awfully good taste. Like that's almost like an oxymoron, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people are working really hard to try and create a home that people will perceive
as being good taste,
great taste, right? Yeah. But obviously Lucinda is a visionary. She is a fashion, you know, she's a fashion stylist. She's a creative force. So she wants to go beyond great taste. And there is something in that. There is some magic essence in doing that. I think, again, if everything becomes too coordinated, too overly styled, this is what you've got to be in danger of. If it becomes too Pinteresty, Instagrammable, you kind of end up feeling like you're living in a catalogue.
You need to have something, and very often it can only be one thing that feels like it doesn't belong. If you have 10 things that feel like they don't belong, then you're probably into what I think they might call a hot mess, or possibly even a cold mess. So it's about one thing that makes you go, oh, okay, oh, actually, I think that works. I mean, you might tie it in very subtly somewhere else with just it's the tiniest detail in a painting that you've pulled out and put onto a cushion or a chair or something that just wakes it all up and stops it, as you say, sort of sliding down into, it's very beautiful, yawn, I've gone to sleep. You want it to go, oh, wow, what's that doing there? And that's what her orange
it creates
chair
intrigue
does.
and interest. And Nikki Hasslam, who's obviously an incredibly iconic British interior designer, I read about, he said that he always puts a hot, bright red, lipstick red item in all his schemes. And that was his disruptor. And I thought that was really interesting that he'd almost distilled it into one particular colour shade.
That was the very famous from last year, the unexpected red theory, isn't it? But I actually wrote a piece over on Substack.
Well, he said it a lot longer before that TikTok
and then it
came up,
and then it sort of went viral with the TikTok. And I actually wrote a piece on Substack about it. And I think, the unexpected red theory does work. The lipstick red will work, but it doesn't have to be red. If that's not your colour, it could be acid yellow's a great disruptor colour. Cobalt blue. I mean, cobalt blue for you is not a disruptor because you have it all over your house. So,
acid yellow is quite a disruptor colour.
It can be quite good. Or a really zingy green, just something that isn't necessarily there. And I would argue, actually, that a really zingy green is a good way to do a disruptor colour if you're a little bit nervous about it, because you can just introduce it to the rest of the, if you've got a plant or two, then you've got a little bit of green already. So you're doing it in a slightly more gentle way. You've got that zingy green piece of furniture or cushion or whatever it is. But if you've got a couple of plants, then there's a bit more green and you're not going to scare yourself.
It's so interesting you should say that, because over your left-hand shoulder, for people who are watching us on YouTube, there is a zingy green cabinet that I didn't see last time I visited your house. And as soon as we started recording, I was like, what the hell's that in the corner of Kate's house? That's such a non-Kate Watson Smile green. And that's your disruptor right there.
Well, yeah, that's a slightly odd one now, because now we're recording and I'm working with Habitat. But I'm
Oh, so is that not staying?
Well, no, actually, do you know what? It is staying. It's a really great piece. But I'm just doing a whole load of content with them for 6 months. And one of the things I'm talking about is this notion of a disruptor colour. So I've brought that in for that reason, and it's got a green plant on it. I mean, I can't see it on my camera, but it's that idea of just disrupting things a bit with a colour that doesn't at first sight feel as if it would go.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a piece of furniture. It could just be a vase. It could just be a lampshade. Oh, talking of lampshades, that's something I think you can have a lot of fun with when it comes to finishing touches, because I think it's really changed actually in the last few years, because this used to be a bit of a soapbox of mine, but I'm feeling like I haven't got much of a soapbox to stand on anymore because...
Do tell.
Typically in the past, most lamps came with a white shade. It was just the standard thing.
Did they?
And it would be... Yeah, do you not remember? I just remember all lampshades being like ivory. Yeah. And I think, and you'd have to like upsell to get a coloured one. And I think now we're seeing more and more coloured lampshades coming with the base. Like it's just because colour and maximalism has become much more of a kind of like, we're really moving out of this Scandi beige era that gripped us through most of the noughties and
teens, whatever they're called. I don't know. I don't like it.
So I used to always say to people, if you've got a lamp with a white or beige lampshade, switch it out. But actually, more and more now, lampshades are fabulously patterned or coloured. But I think it is a great way of adding that pop of disruptor colour if you want. Like have a bright red lampshade or a pattern lampshade or a leopard print lampshade.
Leopard print, good. But you've just got to be aware of the light that's coming out of it, because obviously the more intensely patterned it is, the less light will come through it. So, you need to, have it as decor, but just if you need to read by it, make sure it's enough. But the other really good trick for that is to buy lampshades with a gold inside, because that reflects the light out.
Where do you get those from?
I think really you can get them all. I mean, I've seen them on the high street.
Gold lined lampshades.
Yeah, it's just gold paper. Graham and Green had them. I've seen them in John Lewis.
Is it Loves Frankie?
She might well have them. That just gives you a bit more light. Nick, obviously, if it's gold, it's quite a flattering light. But the other thing, I was
going to say, I need a gold lampshade, don't I? From just to give me that,
just to enhance that golden glow. The other thing, I'm moving on now because I've got a thought. I can't be here talking about your golden glow. That's a different podcast. Okay. I was going to say that there's much more now of a notion of you can paint your own lampshades. I mean, I think it's slightly trickier if you've got a linen lampshade, you'd need the right paint. But those paper ones, it's a bit Charleston House, isn't it? You can just paint on them. And
Who even are you?
I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but I've seen it done. There's a website called, I think they're called Hum London, and they sell painted paper lampshades. I've seen on Pookie is now selling paper lampshades where they've just painted on them, so you don't even have to DIY, a very simple scallop shape or a stripe, or, so if you've got a whole load of plain lampshades left over, do that yourself.
I feel like a new segment coming on. You've just given me inspiration. Kate's Crafty Corner.
Yeah, no, that's it.
We could do a weekly segment, Kate's Crafty Corner, where Kate, Watson Smythe, comes up with crafty ways
that she won't be doing.
Upcycle your home.
Yeah, it's going to be quite short, and I think that may have been its first and last episode. But yeah, paint your lampshades, people. Knock yourselves out.
Painted lampshades get you very Charleston.
I think that's
farmhouse.
Yeah, exactly. And the great thing about Charleston is if you haven't been, you should go. It's fascinating. I know you've been and I've been. What's great about it is that it's really hand done. I remember walking into one room, and it was Virginia Woolf that was doing it.
We should just tell. It's a country farmhouse, again, very close to where I live in East Sussex, which was this creative hub for lots of the writers and artists of the Bloomsbury set, wasn't it?
And Virginia Woolf did a lot of painting, and it was very, so she has painted lampshades, she's painted cupboards, she's painted the fireplace.
She's literally painted everything.
Yeah.
The floors, walls,
doors,
furniture, lighting, fabrics. I mean, there isn't a plain surface in there. It's
there was
glorious.
One particular room which struck me because it's not been done with a laser and a stencil and all this. She's just kind of clearly done it as the mood takes her.
Oh, there's a bit of potato printing going on all sorts.
There's one room where over the window, there's a kind of, I'm going to say olive green, it might be red, I can't remember. There's a sort of swirl that goes across the top of the window. And she clearly, it looks like she dipped her brush in the paint and sort of walked across. So on the left-hand side, the paint's quite thick and curvy, and then it sort of tails off, and it's as if she got to the other end of the window and put the brush down and wandered off to write a chapter of her new novel or something. I mean, it's kind of, I wouldn't have the courage to carry that off. I would need it to be done a bit more carefully. But there is also something deeply inspiring about the fact that she just felt it and did it. So even if you wanted yours a bit more finished off, a bit tidier than that, take the idea that she just kind of did it because
it doesn't
she
have
could
to be
paint over
perfect.
it.
And I think this is another lovely point about finishing touches is don't be in pursuit of perfection.
Perfection will ruin it. I wrote about that as well, because perfection will ruin it because you'll get so hung up on looking for the faults or not buying the thing because you're worried it won't be perfect or being unable to make the decision between the two things. And, you'll spend 10 years living in the place that isn't right because you just couldn't do it. I mean, just do it.
And I also think the pursuit of perfection kills a bit of the magic as well.
Totally.
I mean, I think that sounds absolutely charming that the paint dribbled off to the edges.
It's quite funny. I mean,
I personally find that quite delightful. But then again, it's personal taste. There'll be some people that sends them absolutely demented. Before we move off the Charleston farmhouse, I just want to share with you my most utter favourite thing, I think, in that whole... I mean, there's so much to love about it. Lampshades made out of colanders. I mean, it's all just brilliantly fabulous. But the macramé radiator covers. I
Ah.
thought was so genius.
Yes.
The kind of like 1930s version of radiator cover was
But
so great.
I think that's so interesting because I personally am not a big fan of a radiator cover. You know, you do you. If that's what you want, I would always paint
Why don't you like them? Just to quantify.
because the ones I've seen, the standard ones I've seen, tend to be
what with the kind of like Gothic fretwork in
it's
them,
a
those
Gothic
sorts of
fretwork.
ones.
It's a Moroccan fretwork. It's all this fancy fretwork, which to my mind, very often doesn't fit with either
the vernacular of the building, darling.
either with the architecture or with the rest of your interior design. You know, it's just like feels random. And also, you're not going to convince me that it's not stopping the heat coming through. So there's all that. So for me, rather than have a radiator cover, what I'm going to do is paint the radiator to match the wall behind. Or if it's wallpaper, I'm going to pick out one of the colours in the wallpaper and paint
Not
it that
wallpaper,
colour.
the radiator. That's not a good idea.
No, the wallpaper behind. So I'm always going to make mine a colour to make it disappear. They're mostly not things of beauty, unless you've got cast iron radiators, different story. But the macramé one, I remember noticing that at Charleston House. And there's another really clever one, arguably better than a wooden one. So there's a house in Milan called the Villa Necchi, which you can go and visit, Necchi. And it belonged to the Necchi family, who were the equivalent of the Singer sewing machine family. They made sewing machines, Italian sewing machines. And you can go and tour their house, which is an incredible 1930s house. And there was a film, can't remember which one it was, got Tilda Swinton in it. It was The Big Splash or The Big Love or something, filmed in that house. Anyhow, go and see it. But they have in that house radiator covers, which are effectively like, what am I going to say, like brass necklaces. So it's like a flat brass diamond on a little chain, and then there's a flat a brass circle, and then a diamond. So it's a sort of brass curtain that hangs
Like
down
a
in
brass
front.
beaded curtain idea.
Yeah, but they're just flat discs of brass, and they hang down in front of the radiator. So my guess is that, so A, hiding the radiator really well, B, conducting the heat pretty well as well. And I remember seeing those, and I've tried and tried. For some reason, I didn't take a photograph. I was so blown away. There's no photograph. Can't share it with you. You'll have to go and have a look. But I thought that was brilliant. And that would be much more in keeping with a house, I think, because you could...
What? Gold disc?
Well, they
gold
don't have to
disco
be...
curtains?
They don't... Well, they don't
And
have
how's
to
that
be
gonna look
gold.
like? What's that going to look like in your semi-detached?
Well, you would
Gonna look
choose your
you
shapes,
need
wouldn't
a
you?
villa in Milan,
You
don't
could,
you, for that?
have simpler shapes. It doesn't have to be shiny brass. You could do it in black, beaded. I don't know. Apparently, there's a Pierre Cardin one at Wow House one year did a similar thing as a shower curtain. Anyhow, the point is that's a better heat conductor. But radiator covers, yes, more interesting. Now we can leave the Charleston House. We are talking. Oh, there was one other point I wanted to. Shall I say this and hate myself? I'll say this
Go
and
on,
shoot
then.
myself in the head. I wanted to circle back. You mentioned in passing when we were talking about paint about bringing your collections together. And I think
Yes.
that's a really key thing. If you've got a collection, and I think we talked in an earlier episode about how it's easier to shop if you're, bringing things together and collecting things. Don't scatter them throughout the house one on one, because they won't have any impact. Bring them together. Have a shelf that's all amazing.
I think you'll
vases.
find I said that. You're circling back just to steal my tip and repeat it. That's exactly
I'm
what you're
repeating
doing.
it in a more maybe clear
Eloquent
fashion.
way.
I don't think you emphasised it enough, but yes. So bringing together collections. Okay, I've got another one.
I think no, but I think before we move off collections, circling back as you were, I think it's also an interesting conversation to say how much stuff is the right amount of stuff, and what is, where do you lie on the barometer? Because I think sometimes people can get really complicated about having too many cushions on their sofa, too many cushions on the bed, what's too many vases or ornaments. And it can create arguments and discord of like people having different views on the amount of stuff. Now, for me,
Nothing is too much.
My happiness just grows the more things that arrive in my home, the more cushions that. But then I feel it, and I know when there's like, okay, there's too many cushions now. I have to take some of these out and put them in the treehouse. That's usually where they go to die. That's my little cushion graveyard is a very fabulously furnished treehouse by the sounds of things. how do you get a feel for when you've done enough finishing touches?
Well, that's an easy question to answer.
Well, it's interesting for both of us, I think, because I think I probably like more stuff than you. But you still like a lot of stuff.
Oh,
you have a lot of knick-knackery.
I've never said I'm a minimalist. I am what I used to call myself years ago in the days of the blog. I'm a bit of a monochrome maximalist. I love stuff, got loads of it. It's just I don't have it in all the different colours. Mine will be more tonal with a fewer colour palette. But absolutely, I've got a lot of stuff. This is difficult to answer because I think the issue is, and we said this before, you will get a feeling, listen to your feeling. You will get a feeling that actually maybe that's a bit too much and I want to pare back. And so we can't say to you that there's a rule. I mean, there are sort of styling rules, guidelines that odd numbers work better if you want that eclectic look. Another way of looking at it, I would say, when it comes to objects is if you've got a space for all these objects on a shelf or a table, then it's a collection. If you haven't got anywhere to put them, that's when it starts looking like clutter. So you know, if your mantelpiece is full and they're spilling over onto the table next to the mantelpiece, which actually is where you had a lamp and now no one can put their coffee down, that's when it starts to look like clutter. So I think you need to try and contain it to a space, or if you spill out of that space but you still want to expand your collection, then maybe it moves, the new bits moves into a new room. But it's always got to have somewhere to go that's not interfering with, boring word, the function of the room. You know, I still want to be able to come down, sit in a chair, put my coffee on the table next to me and read my book. I don't want to have to be fighting with 27
like removing 100
gnomes.
Cushions and clearing ornaments off a side table.
So that's also my rule, if you like, with cushions. Obviously, I have fewer than you, but I don't really have any on the bed because I can't be doing, especially in this heat, I can't be doing with having to remake the bed before I can get into it. But I quite like different coloured pillowcases. So I might have two or three pillows on the bed and they'll be, odd. They won't be all the same. So I might have two different pairs.
I came to your house in Turin. I had a couple of cushions on my bed.
Yeah, not my bedroom.
So I've got to do the heavy lifting of moving the cushion. But you did only have two, and actually I'm the same. I personally feel like a bed doesn't look inviting without scatter cushions on it.
But who are you inviting? Well, that's a whole different question. Who are you inviting? I mean, I know.
My tip is to have just one big one rather than lots of little ones. So I like to have a nice big 50 or 60 centimetre square. Maybe then like a little bolster or a baguette size cushion, so then maybe you've got three. Because I agree, sometimes you see these bedding catalogues and there's literally pillow sham after, I mean, they go on and on
extraordinary.
And on, and seriously.
And it also makes the bed look like it's for children.
Oh, I see. I don't mind that. I do think it looks spectacular, but I would worry that first of all they've all got to go on the floor, and then I'm going to trip over them when I go and take my little trip in the middle of the night.
Yeah, midnight wee.
Midnight wee. I'm going to be falling over cushions all the night, so it's a practical thing. But I do like a cushion on a bed. But my tip is go big, get some trim on there, get some flourishes, make it a big blousey, shouty cushion.
So it's one. It's go big or go home.
Yeah,
one
two
fabulous
or
cushion.
Three on a bed, I think, is my
bolster.
limit.
I like the long, thin one, which you can then use to prop yourself up while you're reading, and then put that on the floor.
Well, exactly. There is that as well. So, yeah. But on my sofa in my conservatory, well, actually, all my sofa, I think I've got about 11 cushions on my 3-seater sofa. But it's a very deep back sofa.
Yeah.
So they work. They never come off. They never go on the floor.
Well, this is the other thing.
Rearranged depending on whether you're lying or sitting up.
Yeah, I mean, you are sort of looking at the style of your sofa, and again, what you're doing when you're on the sofa. Back to that old question again.
I would always buy a deep-seated sofa so I could get loads of scatter cushions on it. I would never buy one of those sort of mid-century modern sofas that tend to be quite upright.
Well, it's part of your decorating style, isn't it? Because for you, obviously, a sofa needs to be comfortable. Of course, it does for everybody, but part of your decorating style is all that kind of squish of cushions and colour and pattern. So for you, that's a place. It performs a function more than just sitting. It's about bringing more colour and pattern in. If you've gone for a mid-century sofa style, my supposition is that you are less about layering lots of colour and pattern and might be more about a slightly more architectural feel, or you might just want
More
a
about
couple
the
of plain
lines,
cushions.
darling.
Yes, so it's
lines
your
and the
different
silhouette.
style. But on that note, I would say another finishing touch, which I think is really important and often overlooked. If you've done your room and you've sort of coloured it in and you think you're done and it still feels a bit off, or you're not quite sure where you've gone wrong, you know, you've looked at your red thread and you've got your sofas, you haven't got a matching 3-piece suite, you've got a sofa and 2 chairs, you've done the art, it's not quite working. Look at the shapes. And I think shapes often is a kind of overlooked element in the finishing touches, because obviously, unless you live in an oast house in Kent, your walls are basically straight. Your sofa's probably straightish, your bed is a rectangle, your coffee table might be a rectangle. There's a lot of straight lines in rooms. And very often, what's missing when you're doing those finishing touches is a curve or a circle or an oval. And actually, cushions is a really great way to bring that in. So you could have an oval mirror over the mantelpiece. You could have a couple of small round cushions in front of your big square ones. You know, you may have a pattern if it's a bed throw that's quite curvy and round and organic in shape. But, you know, just consider, have you got lots of shapes going on? I've got a lamp on my desk. So obviously sitting at my desk here with my, you know, rectangle desk and my square coaster and my notebook. And my lamp actually is made of lots of sort of wooden balls. So that's quite a curvy shape with a plain linen lampshade on it, which I'm going to go and paint this afternoon. Right now, you'll see. So it's bringing in different shapes, I think, is important. You've gone very quiet. Am I boring you?
Nodded off, Ben, for a minute.
Did you? Thanks for that. I knew I loved making this podcast. Great. Right, I think that's the end. I've got nothing more.
It's the heat, Kate. It's the heat. It's just making me melt. I need to go and lie in a tepid bath.
Yeah, with an ice cube under your armpit.
Yes.
Oh, one thing that I will say is, just imagine this. While I'm lying in my tepid bath, though, I'll be
Do we have to
surrounded-
imagine you lying in a tepid bath? I'm not. This has gone in a whole new direction.
I tell you what, there'll be a market out there for somewhere for people who want to imagine me in a tepid bath. But
Is it
maybe
called
not, maybe not.
OnlyFans?
Yes, probably not the Great Dolls podcast.
I don't think so.
No, but just on that point, I think bringing it all together, my bathroom set surrounded by paintings, I've got candlesticks, I've got plants in there, I've got rugs in there, I've got open shelving, displaying bits and bobs. And I think that's the thing, is finishing touches the tendrils can go out to every single room in your home. And I think actually, especially bathrooms that get very ignored when it comes to finishing touches, don't they? It's sort of like they're seen as being quite utilitarian spaces, all tiled out, all very wipeable, downable, you know, a couple of bottles of shower gel on display, job done. And I think there's a real opportunity to bring some magic to every single corner of your home. And I'm especially passionate about making bathrooms feel extra special with the finishing touches.
Well, I think the problem is, and this is probably a whole different subject, which we have discussed before in sort of planning your bathroom episodes. I think the average British bathroom is often hardly any bigger than a double bed or than a double mattress. There's some shocking statistic about how small they are. So it can be very difficult, but that's when, and you know, that's when paint is your friend. Because you can use colour and also towels. Every bathroom needs towels. So, you know, just maybe move away from the white hotel towel look, which has never worked for me if you wear any makeup because they're ruined, you know, one day in. But you can get now really lovely patterned towels and checks and stripes and florals. So have fun with that.
Wonderfully patterned colourful
Exactly.
towels. And I think you'll find I have a whole collection at Dunelm for your delight. We've got stripes, we've got geometric, I've got floral towels.
Right, there we go. Moving on from the Sophie shopping show.
And you can get a shower curtain as well to match to the final flourish of your finishing touch.
It's like this whole episode was building up to that. But yes, all things that don't take up any space. Right, finishing touches. In a short, how to make your home tell your story. There you go.
Yes, I think that's what it's about, isn't it? I think that's what I love about finishing touches is the possibility that actually what we're saying is it's never finished.
Yeah.
It's a story that keeps on being
but
told.
that also is the joy of it. And people panic about, is it finished? When's it finished? It doesn't have to be finished. As I say,
I
if you've
panic
got
that
the
it's ever going to
outlines,
finish, because then all the fun stops.
Exactly. And then you get bored and you want to refresh it. So yes, get your outlines in place and all those bits we've talked about in the previous 4 episodes. And then this one goes on forever with refreshes and changes and tweaks. It's tweakments. It's
Unlike
house
us.
tweakments, not facial tweakments.
Unlike
Not
us,
averse
you-
to those either. Haven't had one.
another
Might have
podcast
one.
as
Yeah.
Well, I was going to do a lovely segue there, but I've lost the moment. I was saying, unlike us, we're not going to go on forever. Are we going to wrap this one up?
Well, we are going to wrap this one up. Yes, we do hope you have enjoyed this. This episode, and indeed this new series so far. If you'd like to chat about this week's topics or indeed anything else, do come and join us over on Substack, where I'm Kate Watson-Smythe and Sophie. She's still Sophie
dipping
Robinson
my
Interiors. She's coming.
I'm still dipping my toe in, but I am gently coming over to the Substack side, because I just love it as a space for sort of up-to-date news, seeing there's some really interesting people joining Substack in the interior design, interior space. It's still quite new, isn't it, over there, Kate? But I've got good vibes and feelings about Instagram. If you're looking to learn more about the power of styling, of maximalism, of how to bring it all together and get deeper into finishing touches, do come and check out my online interior design school at courses.sophierobinson.co.uk. I'm thinking my course about how to create a maximalist interior is a particularly great course if you love lots of stuff and you love collecting beautiful objects and all the pretty things, but you want to know how to make it all hang together. That's where I share my knowledge of it with you.
That's good tip. That's how to tame your stuff is what you could actually call that course. As for me, I also have an online course at Create Academy, but I am mostly on Substack these days with house tours, interviews with experts, and weekly posts on everything, including finishing touches. And also, as I mentioned earlier, a piece on why the pursuit of perfectionism might be ruining your decor. So come and find me over there if you want to.
Well, I think that's all from us for now, but do come back next week. It's the last one, isn't it? Next week in our mini series. This is where we hand the mic to you and we're going to be answering your style surgery questions. In the meantime, do consider watching this podcast over on YouTube or joining in with the chat on our new Instagram account, which is obviously called The Great Indoors Podcast. Leaves me one last thing to say. A huge thank you for listening.
And we'll see you in the great indoors.